Yep, hi all. So it's 1st of August 2020. So the Nike Mag version 3s are almost finished. So on the left shoe here, this one here wasn't as bad. So this is the original board, and basically had to locate these correct sockets, repair the board where the old socket had been yanked out of, and put back in the correct spec resistor as well. I also added additional sort of strengthening wire, which you can see just glimpse it there, and that goes from this side of the board round the connector to the other side, and that adds significant extra strength. And I've saved and you can now see it sort of glossy. I now just sealed this in with hot glue, which also I checked online, and it said that would be good, wouldn't damage it, etc. Obviously I haven't got this black stuff, whatever this might be. So that's good. Yep, so that's nice. You plug it in there. Obviously you have to be careful with these particular shoes not to force them in, but put it in carefully. It goes in absolutely spot on, you know. But with these components you need to be gentle when you insert, say, the charge cable, because it's only it's here, so it's only 2.5mm by 0.7, I think it is, charge cable in there. So that's that one there, and then put that on charge for literally a couple of hours, and then it's holding charge overnight as well. You can't really sort of see it very much here, but I've marked here the on-off switch, and so it all does light up. It's obviously an absolutely glorious sunshine day here. So this is quite a clever shoe actually, because these are LEDs and these EL lighting. So normally you'd have to use an inverter for the ELs, and then something similar for the LEDs. But this is very, very clever. It's all run off this one board here, because there's a lot of microelectronics inside that board. So it's a very, very complex design. We looked online, can't find these replacement boards anywhere. And the battery, of course, is mounted underneath the insoles, and then underneath a piece of sort of stitched in sort of another inner sole basically. This one here was much more complex to repair. So you can see on the board here, this missing most of the black stuff off it, and there's two resistors there, and basically some of the components were completely destroyed, just not even there anymore. It's very, very difficult to sort of locate, and also the board was damaged, so I had to add in some additional resistors and fix some additional electronics underneath there, sort of to the MOSFET. So that's good, and obviously the sockets on there, and you can better see the strengthening wire on this one actually, so it's gone a bit different on the glue. And I say, yep, I've added, say, the hot glue around there, which is all good. I'm actually going to add a little bit of extra hot glue actually onto that little dot you can see there. So when I applied it, I didn't see that I hadn't done that part, because I did in this different room, that's all, so I couldn't sort of tell. But yeah, that is all good enough. So obviously I didn't want to use too much hot glue as well, because of course the hot glue is, according to the internet, 230 degrees. So I didn't want to put too much heat on any of those components, just in case. So yeah, I'll add a bit of extra hot glue on in a moment onto that particular piece. But yeah, that is absolutely beautiful in there. And it'll be on off here. So this one here, the battery was knackered. So the battery, you could plug it in and switch it on, and then it would come on, but basically you left it on for a couple of hours, and then ultimately the battery wasn't holding charge. And so what you have to do is you have to cut out, remove all the insoles, and basically really gently cut out this piece here. Any shape you want to do it, but this is a good shape that I've done it before at. Do it very carefully, because you can see all the wiring goes right in the corners, right underneath that. And then there's a bit of black, I'm trying to focus this, a bit of black plastic here. And then you lift that up, and then underneath there in that big hole is normally where the battery goes. So what I've done is I've got a brand new drone battery, and the drone battery happens to have the same connector on, but the positive and negative ran the wrong way. So what I have to do is I have to sort of poke a tiny little screwdriver into little silver bits there to release the two wires, and then just flip them around the opposite side, plug it in, job done. So this one here is 3.7 volts. 3.7 volts, 380 milliamp hours. So what I've done is I've tested this. I've left it so plugged in overnight after a 2.5 hour charge, and it still operates perfect. So I've ordered the correct new battery. The battery I've got, actually, the original one was puffy, doesn't say have any spec on it. I know it's 3.7 volt, 7 volt, though it's probably at 900 milliamp hours, that sort of size. But there's no spec on it. It's obviously just a cheap generic battery. But it was puffy, being a lipo, so it's knackered. So yeah, I've ordered one of those. It's got the wrong connector on, so what I'll have to do is I have to cut off the connector off the original battery and then solder it on and heat shrink it, etc. Then I can mount it in there. Then you've got you know, obviously roughly equal amount of milliamp hours for these two shoes. I mean, the battery itself is the same physical size, so in theory they're both the same milliamp hour battery. Obviously this one here, you know, the battery here is probably, you know, a year or two old, for example. I don't know how old these shoes are, and obviously that'll be a brand new one, so it lasts a bit longer. Now these ones here for charging, and what I read off the internet is that there's no overcharge sort of function on it, so you're not meant to overcharge these batteries, because otherwise it won't cut out. So I think it said 5 hours was the optimal amount of charging time. So I'm going to suggest on these ones you charge them for 4 hours, and you'd be really strict on that 4 hours, because you don't want to damage mainly electronics. I mean, the battery's not the end of the world, because you have to cut out the battery on the other shoe and put a new one in and solder it in and all this sort of stuff. It's not the end of the world. But once those electronics there go, you know, there's not, well, obviously I managed to repair it this time, but there's not much stuff you can do with it anymore after that. So there we go. So it's totally sweet. So I'm going to say I'm going to glue this back on now with some proper sort of strong super glue. Get that on there, be sorted. I'll put a bit more additional hot glue on this one here now, and then I can seal that baby up. And then I'll just wait for the UK located battery to arrive. Should get that Wednesday, Thursday next week. That can go back in. This piece can go down, and I'll probably put a bit of super glue on it. I don't want to put too much on, because then it is covered in, you know, various insoles. Yeah, quite a few actually. 4 insoles in this one, you know. But yes, I shall cover that over and get that sorted. I mean, you could go to town, of course, and properly glue everything all around the outside, get absolutely, you know, if you wanted to. But I think it's quite handy that just put a few spots of glue on it. That way, if the battery does go in it, you know, in a year or two's time, you know, or you overcharge it or you cock it up or whatever, you know, then you haven't got to cut through it all again and risk damaging the wires. You can just peel it back, connect up a new battery, and then you're good to go. You know, unless of course you mull electronics, in which case you have to do some sort of proper full-on EL conversion. And there we go. So that's a lot of effort. I mean, that was a lot of hours of research, a lot of hours of working on it. You know, a lot of time. I mean, it's probably been like 25 hours probably of time on these shoes to get to this stage, and I've still got, you know, an hour or so roughly, say maybe an hour I suppose, just to glue them back together again properly, and then obviously I can then wipe them up, that sort of thing. So it's a big old job. Excellent, cheers. But they are beautiful. And that's a charge cable there. And on another note, if you couldn't fix these electronics, you have to go for something like these EL panel inverters. This one, it takes a single AAA battery, and you can see, comparing to the size of what you've got on here, this is way bigger, and effectively you'd ultimately need 2 of these. So you need one for this, and then you need something similar for this, because of course these LEDs aren't compatible with ELs, so you need at least 2 of something like this. And you'd have to, you know, cut down here to get down to the wiring. Can't just magically connect it up here. You know, you lose access to the switch, which is on here, because the switch is on here. And then of course you'd have these here, so you'd have to probably tuck these into your sock, which isn't, you know, end of the world. But good thing about these though is that you haven't got to charge them. The batteries will probably last a lot longer. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The batteries, I believe, would last longer than these. I'd have to double check that, because mainly because they're physically bigger, but of course these are lipos, so I'm not completely sure actually on that point. But 2 of those tucked in your sock, something to be aware of. But yeah, because of course these are 900 odd milliamp hours. I'm not sure how many milliamps hours these are, but maybe it's sort of 700. You know, and there's obviously 2 of them, so yeah, you get the idea anyway. Cool. And there's a 9 volt one there as well. Again, you'd have to have 2 of those. It's about one for this, and then there's no on-off switch on this particular one either, which you can obviously add, but it's bulky. But yeah, what you've got here, the original setup, if you can get it working, is sweet. Just be very careful when you're charging these things up. That's all. Yeah, the delicate things. Cool. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, hi all. So it's August 2020 and the Mag version 3s are now finished. So this repair took a long time, a lot of effort, a lot of skill required to make this work. Now it's a reasonably bright day outside, but you can see how absolutely beautiful these shoes are. Same for that one there. Switch this off. So yeah, a lot of work involved in these. So these particular ones, that's a charging socket. So basically both of them had absolutely knackered charging sockets. One of them, the board was pretty much wrecked by what looked like a previous sort of attempt at possibly repairing it, or it was just missing a lot of componentry from the boards, which are mounted around about here. Similar to the other one, but what the other one will say wasn't quite as bad. And I say both of them were missing entirely the actual socket from underneath. Cable for it. So yeah, so what we had to do is we had to sort of obviously the owner sort of peeled this section here back to access the board, and obviously did some stuff to it, you know. These are then sent to me for repair. So what I managed to do is, again, it's in the other videos, but managed to repair this repair the circuit board on there, fit in some additional resistors, managed to locate a pair of the original connectors as well, which are £5 each plus an actual import duty, so relatively expensive, you know, for the size of them, what they are, but you know, there's no one else to get them. They're quite a sort of a rare connector, I would say. Put those onto the board. Also then strengthened the board as well by adding a really thin piece of wire around each connector. And then once it was all sorted, one of the shoes was able to, the battery, I was able to charge it and use the battery which was in the sole. The other one had a knackered battery in it as well. So the one that was good, I was able to charge it for a couple of hours, switch it on, all worked absolutely spot on. I was able to leave it for a number of days switched off, I think over a week actually, and it still retained its charge, which is great. The other one, went online, managed to find the correct battery, which I think was 750 milliamp hour, 3.7 volt lithium polymer battery. You then have to remove the various insoles in here, and that then leaves you with a sort of piece of card, effectively a stitched piece of cardboard. So the only way you can get to that is then have to get a sharp knife and just cut through it. So you get in there, you have to undo this velcro piece here, get this tongue, push the tongue back here, pull out all the insoles, and then basically just cut through it really carefully, because obviously that's where all the wiring is. Once you've cut through a piece about this size, again you'll see it in the photographs, there's then a black plastic cover. You can lift the plastic cover up, get access to the battery, pull the battery out a few inches, and then simply just disconnect it. Again, you have to do all of that whilst trying to get your hand in there, trying to get your fingers through the gap here, because obviously you don't want to stretch anything, there's not too much room to work. So that was good. I then tested the system using a battery from a drone which had the same connector. And once I knew that it was remaining charged and there was no leakage and the circuit board was good, I then went on eBay and found this replacement battery for about £14 posted. And that eBay UK seller, but the battery actually came from Germany, but it's a perfect fit. So the connector on the battery was a 2-pin, of course, but it was a wrong connector. So I had to cut off the connector off the original battery and then solder on to the new battery, obviously not putting too much heat through the battery, and then obviously double heat shrink, and to heat shrink each wire and then heat shrink both wires over the top, so it's absolutely sweet. And then put it back in there, put the plastic on top, all the insoles etc back in. I didn't bother re-gluing, you know, the sort of cardboard lower sole, because that way if the owner wants to change it in the future again, he hasn't got to sort of peel off old glue and potentially wreck the wiring, so that's fine. But so the battery's protected anyway by the plastic cover. Yeah, and then I've been testing it for a few days just to make sure that it's holding charge. So, you know, just literally switching it off, make sure it's all sorted. So yeah, I'm completely and utterly confident that these are absolutely repaired. Perfect. So yeah, we're looking very good now for those shoes. So all we need to say really is it's very complex, it's extremely time consuming. You know, the fact that you can't go out and buy these is difficult. And obviously you can sort of see here, you've got some sort of wrinkling here, of course, you know, because of course this has been pulled back, you know, say by the owner, but obviously me as well, we had to peel it back in order to be able to repair it. So kind of hoping, you know, after a while, things like, you know, this rippling here might even out a bit, but you know, that's what it is, unfortunately, to be able to repair it. But yeah, otherwise absolutely sweet. Those are really, really nice. The quality of that shoe is absolutely beautiful. You know, and see we've got the on-off switch in here. So yeah, just to say that the note to anyone who's got these is, of course, to be extremely careful with the socket. If you do buy these shoes here, it might actually pay really to do what the owner did, to peel the cut through here carefully, cut around here, peel this back so you can expose the circuit board, and then actually seal it and strengthen it yourself. So once I did that wire technique, I also then used hot glue in order to seal the board, because obviously the board was exposed, all the components were exposed. I don't want anything getting damp, I don't want anything getting damaged, so I just use hot glue. I checked online, it said that hot glue is fine to use on circuit boards, you know, so I just put a reasonable good old smear of hot glue, you know, on it to sort of seal it all in and keep it waterproof, and hopefully that also adds a lot, well, that will add a lot of strength to this. I'm going to say, this goes in absolutely fine. I'm not going to do it one-handed, so I think the moral of the story is when you get your charger, just look in there, line up, put it in carefully and properly, and it goes in absolutely beautiful. Don't force it, just do it properly each time and you're fine. And also, as a note, these shoes here, from what I've read online, don't have an overcharge function on it. So it means if you leave it on overnight, the charger will just keep pumping juice into the cell, and eventually, after a number of times, it will just destroy the cell, because there's no circuitry in here to sort of cut off the charge. Again, this is what I've read on the internet, you know, because there's no way you can sort of specifically test that. But when we looked at the circuitry, it does look like that's true. So on the internet, it suggests a 5-hour charge per shoe using a standard USB cable in a standard 2.1 I think amps output socket. So I would just recommend personally charging it for 4 hours, then you know you're well below the window. You know, maybe consider, if you plan on using it for say longer than that, potentially maybe take one of those portable battery power packs or something to charge it up for an hour, you know, during your lunch break or your sandwich break or whatever. You know, 'cause I don't really think you'd want to run around in these shoes anyway, particularly for longer than 4 hours with them on anyway. But you might be able to handle more charge, it probably can, but say the internet says 5 hours, so I would just suggest 4 hours, just to be safe, you know. And there you go, absolutely beautiful. And I say, lot of effort, a lot of work. You need a lot of tweezers, a lot of long range scissors, that sort of stuff, in order to get in there. And whilst I could repair these again, now I know what the situation is. It was a lot of effort to repair those, particularly as you need to try and keep these units very clean, which is very, very difficult when you're trying to get in there and work and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, those are absolutely beautiful. So those are going to go back to the owner now. Excellent. Cheers. Thank you.